Hello, welcome to MotoTribe. I'm Laura Kraft,
Anna Rigby.
Emily Prince.
Sarah Merrill.
and we are MotoTribe. Today we're going to be talking about pre-ritual ride checklist. Everyone has a checklist before you hop on the bike. There's certain things that you do. And so today we're going to make it a little fun and go around, and each of us is going to name one thing and then pass it to the other. And so we'll see how far we get down and what all is on our checklist. So with that, I am going to pass it to Anna. What's on your checklist?
Oh, I've got the easy first one. For me, it's always tire pressure. And the reason for that is you don't know how, if you're holding well, you want to look over your tires, make sure that you haven't caught a nail or anything on your previous ride. But the other reason I do that is because depending on what style of riding I'll be doing, I might want to make my tires a little softer, grippier, or if I'm taking a road trip, I'm going to put that PSI up a little higher so that I don't have so much tire wear.
I sometimes might glance at my chain, just kind of look to make sure it's not really crusty and really just looking dry, because I've had them stretch on me before, because if you run them when they get dry, they can stretch and then you're going to have to replace your chain. So, every little bit I'll check the chain and make sure that one's, still looks good and greased up.
Also, just giving the bike a quick look over the whole thing in general, because every once in a while I'll spot something that maybe I've been working on the bike, maybe changed the wheels out, and just making sure that there's not an axle bolt missing or things like that. And or one time there was actually a mouse nest in my exhaust, so especially if you haven't ridden your bike in a while, sometimes it's good to just have that overall check.
I have a funny story on that one. That happened to me with the I changed out the front wheel and I went for a ride. And when I got back, it was like a couple days later, I was going for a ride again. And I just decided, you know what, since I just changed my wheel, I'm going to check my pinch bolts. I had not tightened them at all. I'd gone for an entire mountain ride with them where I could just pull them right out. And I'm like, I've added check the pinch bolts. If I've done any maintenance recently, check the pinch bolts, because you just never know.
I'm going to go beyond the bike, because this is really the pre-ride check. I think one of the things that I always make sure that before I hop on a bike is I have my gear on. So I have my leathers, I have my jacket, my pants, and that I'm ready to ride.
Another thing I always do is I actually turn notifications on, and on my iPhone, I turn tracking on so that my husband knows where I'm at, especially if I'm going out in the mountains. It's pretty spotty up there, so signal isn't always great and he can't always find me, but at least he knows roughly where I am. And as the signal goes in and out, he can check on me. And I mean, if I haven't moved or if he can't find me, there's a problem. So at least he can kind of track me.
That's a good one. Making sure that at least the people who you would expect to be contacting you know that you're out riding, because my mother is one, as she's been calling me all night as I'm trying to do this. She'll sit there and she'll call. And if I don't answer, she'll send a text message. And if I don't respond, then she starts freaking out and she's calling Vaughn and she's, starting to panic. So I'll let her know, hey, I'm riding today. So if I don't respond right away, then I'll just wait till I get to a spot where I can, just to kind of make sure no one's freaking out. Got to tell my daughter that I'm riding, because if she needs something, like God forbid she can't find me. So make sure everyone knows where I am.
One of the things that I try to do too is to just, in addition to doing that inventory of the bike, and Anna, to your point a bit, is just kind of doing an inventory of myself as well. And one of the things that they talked about at Champ School, they called it "Don't Crash the Coffee." And basically what they meant by that lesson was, when you're getting ready to get on the bike, to take the time don't rush into it and jump on your bike and be in a rush to catch up with the people that you're riding with, but to take that time to have that time to yourself and that peace of mind to breathe, to go through your checklist and a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today, to not be in a rush, in a mad rush to get out the door. Because when you're on a bike and you're going high speeds, maybe, or even if you're not going high speeds, you have to be very self-aware. And so it helps to just take that breath and make sure that your bike is ready and that you are ready.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You've got to really take your time before hopping on the bike. You can't rush it, because rushing it, you're going to forget something, or you're going to make a really stupid mistake. But one of the other things that I do going back to the bike is I look at the fluids, making sure that I have, brake fluid in there. And with my Ducati, I've had some issues with my clutch, some clutch fade. And so I always see if I still have some clutch left or whether I need to burp it, get any kind of air bubbles out of the line and make sure I'm good to go and ride. Otherwise, I could try to grab the clutch and it not quite work, which is not good. So again, it's taking your time before you get off and going, and making sure that you're in your head.
Yeah, that clutch one, that's a special one for you. I think most of us don't have to worry about that. We don't have fluid there, but your hydraulic one definitely does. So yeah, looking over the bike is one thing, but I also like to take a moment and stretch, especially if I'm going to be going into the mountains and if I know I'm going to be riding aggressively and hanging off the bike. So that's both for riding in the twisties and track riding. I have an extensive stretch routine, and that's just for me. I always feel very stiff, especially in the morning. So during the stretching probably takes me about 15, 20 minutes to do it. So same thing, you warm up your brain, you warm up your body, and then you're ready to go.
Yep, I agree with all of those. I am not that good about checking fluids, though. The only fluid that I typically check is make sure I have gas. So that's one thing I will always my track bike doesn't have a gauge, so I have to open it up and look down inside the hole, see if there's, visible liquid. But on the Triumph, I can crank it up and it'll tell me how much I have. So I can always be, checking that fluid, but I don't ever really check my other fluids, unless I'm doing my scheduled maintenance every, couple thousand miles. One thing I will add, my helmet, I have my Sena system in there. And so I always listen to music when I'm riding on the street. And let me tell you, if I leave my driveway and I forgot to start the music, I will pull over and pull the gloves off and start my music. Because I'm like, it's just not the same without the music.
One of the things that I try to think about too is before I get on the bike is to have a plan. Like, what is my plan going to be? Is there something that I'm going to be working on with this ride, or that I'm going to try to focus on and think about where am I going and what order am I going to be doing things once I get to each destination, just to have that plan in my head of, first off, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to reacquaint myself with the bike and get focused. And then what am I going to do after that? Am I going to spend some time working on my body position, or am I going to be working on my lines going through corners, or who do I plan to meet up with, and am I going to follow them? And that was one of the things that I learned from Nick Ionach. He would always ask me when I get on the bike, what is your plan? And that's something that I try to do when I get on the bike at the track, and also when I get on the road. And that helps me kind of get centered on the bike.
That's a neat one. I really like that. Asking, what were you doing today on the bike? It's really smart. I think going along that line of thinking about having a plan, it's, where are you riding today? Are you riding to your, neighbor's house, or riding to the mountains? Are you riding on track, or, what is your planned course? Putting into GPS, I have a Cardo Communications. And so as Emily was saying, making sure that that's charged. So for me, it's making sure that that's always charged. And it's the first thing that I do actually when I hop on the bike is turn it on and I listen to music. And, if I am headed somewhere that I don't know where I'm going, I plug it in GPS and it takes me there. So it's magic. Really do like that. So it goes along with both Sarah and Emily, what you guys just said of having a communication system and then having a plan of, taking it to that next level of where are you riding to?
You two like listening to music. I'm the opposite. I always get a new set of fresh earplugs and pop those in. And it doesn't matter if I'm on track, if I'm commuting somewhere, if I'm running errands or going to the mountains. So yeah, earplugs are a necessity for me. The road noise and the wind noise is really exhausting for me. And it also makes me feel like I'm going a lot faster than I really am. And I don't like that. So when I put the earplugs in and things get quiet, I kind of, I still feel and hear my engine, but everything else gets kind of, nice and chilled out. So that's how I prefer to roll.
I'm the opposite. Leave me with silence. And I'm like, oh my God, I think about everything and I overthink everything. And please don't leave me in my own head. I feel like we're playing like Family Feud. And I have like the best answer right now that I can't believe no one's thought of yet. It just came to me. Check the weather. Check the weather.
Oh, you have a story.
Every time now, because the one time, like I religiously check the weather before I go ride because I hate getting stuck in the rain. I don't want to be stuck where I'm riding home. It's cold, it's wet, and it's dangerous, and I'm miserable. And so like I always check. But my first trip up to the Dragon to go visit Sarah, to go, Anna, Laura, and I all went up to the Dragon. And we go and like we showed up, I think it was about 6:00 at night. And Sarah's like, this is the best time to ride. It's not crowded. It's not too hot. And like, so, Sarah, the place where we're staying really doesn't have very good Wi-Fi connection. And so like, I think we might've even thought about it, but we're like, there's no Wi-Fi. Let's just go. And so we just like geared up, ran out the door, hit the Dragon. And I mean, we are talking within 3 minutes of getting on the Dragon, it starts raining. And then we keep going. We're like, okay, we're just going to keep pushing through it. And then it starts pouring. And then it gets to the point where it's like there are tree branches flying into the road. There's cars having to stop to remove them. I got hit in the head by a tree branch. Like it was one of those, like the worst weather I have ever ridden in my life. And we're like, had we just checked the weather, this could have been avoided. We were dumping water out of our boots. We had to hang up all of our stuff and try to dry it. My boots never recovered. They still smell to this day from that trip.
And I was really regretting it because I was on completely bald tires.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I'll just, I'll ride these. It's not going to rain, whatever. And it was literally raining sideways. It was black. Like I couldn't see anymore. Opened my visor, still couldn't see. It was so bad. I really wish we checked the weather.
And Laura was the only one who did not go on that ride. She was the only smart one of us. She's like, I've been working all day. I'll ride tomorrow. I just want to chill out tonight. We come back and she's just looking at us like.
I was having a glass of wine and looking outside like, oh my gosh. And I was in the same camp as Anna. My tires were they were bald. And I was nervous about going on the Dragon with them, especially at night. And it just was like, today is not my day to go ride it. We have it the whole weekend. So I was really happy with that decision.
You listened to your intuition. You didn't let us talk you in to go in for a ride because I remember we were so excited and it was Emily's first time. We're like, let's go. There's going to be no one there. And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm not going to get sucked in. And I think that's really important because if you're not feeling it, if you leave your garage and you get out there and you're like, you know what, something's just not right. And you get this gut feeling. And then you're like, no, I'm just going to go because you don't want to let your friends down or whatever. No, listen to that gut feeling. I'm going to tell you right now, I've crashed before because I haven't listened to that gut feeling, and went riding and I shouldn't have gone. You just, subconsciously. So, listen to yourself for sure. Sometimes
when going on a ride, I'll just get this feeling during the ride of things just aren't driving or this isn't my best run. This isn't my best ride. And so I was given advice one time. It was more track advice, and it was don't have a bad race, don't even have a bad lap. Start over at the next corner. And so when I get out there and ride, if I'm not feeling it and I'm struggling and I'm making mistakes, to stop right there, pull over and do a mental check, do a bike check, kind of reevaluate what I'm doing, try to figure out, why am I uncomfortable? And is it because I'm tired? Is it because I forgot to check my tire pressure and it's off? Is it because the weather, the tires are cold, I'm not comfortable on it? What is it that's making me not feel comfortable on the bike? And what is it that is making me feel like I'm having a bad ride? And to pull over then and check myself and get back out there. And just one example was when I was on the DRZ, I was dragging the peg in the corner and it would catch in the pavement and would kind of throw me around, and it was scaring me. And it was making me back off the bike, and it was making me not have a good ride. And so I pulled over and was just trying to evaluate, what can I do differently to turn what doesn't feel like a good ride into a good ride? And it was like, okay, well, if I work on my body position and I get off the bike more and I get my knee out like I need to, and I'm getting my head down, then before I touch the peg, I'll be touching my knee and I'll know my ground clearance. And sure enough, I did that, and I stopped dragging my pegs, and I was able to keep the bike more upright because I was leaning off more. And all of a sudden my ride went from not feeling good to feeling great.
It's getting to that, where are you at today? And, what do you want out of your ride? And making sure that you have those check-ins, not only before the bike, before the ride, but, as you're riding. So, I think that these are all really great checklist items. I'm trying to think of others. I have one more that I know of. It's, always check the time before you leave and understand where you're going. And I think Anna mentioned this earlier, of sharing her location with her husband. And I know for me, I always text whoever I'm going to meet and say, hey, I'm headed there, kickstands up, on my way. So that's another one, kickstands up. Make sure your kickstand is always up before you get going.
Here's an important one. Always make sure you have your documentation on you, your driver's license. I lost mine once on a trip. That was, that sucked. Actually going to Deals Gap one year. And it flew out of my backpack because when I went to get gas, I didn't zip it up. So, double check everything, make sure you got your, button down the hatches. And with that also, like if you're someone that wears contact lenses, like I do, always have an extra pair with you and eye drops. Cause if that thing flies out, like I'm blind. Like I cannot ride a bike if one of those things goes. So yeah, when you got things like that are, life altering on the bike, like make sure you got two of those. Got a spare.
All right. You guys are going to laugh, but you know what I'm going to say. Go to the bathroom. It's the running joke. I literally can never go anywhere without a bathroom trip. It doesn't matter. We are 5 minutes into the trip. We are 2 hours into the trip. If we stop, Emily's going to pee.
Yeah. Any others, ladies? I can think of another one on my end, but Sarah, any other thoughts?
I think just overall, it's good to be in a good mental place. And so sometimes just taking a minute to do some deep breaths and collect yourself. And especially, I think it's hard to when you're with a group of people, because you get excited and you get pumped up and you're like, just, you have all this excitement and sometimes that's not the best, it's not the best mix when you're about to head out on a bike. And so, sometimes like if I'm leading a big group ride, like for an organization, it's I have to kind of bring myself down a little bit from all the excitement. And before I get started, just take some just take some deep breaths and kind of calm down a little bit and get that focus. I mean, focus is so important on a bike.
For me, focus is important. And sometimes for me to maintain that focus is make sure I'm not hungry. So sometimes I carry like a bar in my pocket just in case I get hungry, because I'm the furthest from the mountains. It takes me an hour and a half, sometimes longer to get up there. And then we ride around all day and then I come home. And so if I don't want to be hungry on that, hour long stretch or those hours long stretch. So I typically carry some kind of, whether it's like peanuts or nuts or something that, if I'm just really in need of some food that I have, other things in my pockets. I have chapstick and I have a lot of times Listerine strips. I'm addicted to those. So, other things that I can find in my pockets and just kind of keep me entertained while on the ride.
Buckle your helmet.
Ah.
I can't tell you how many times I've pulled out and gotten to where like you get to a faster road and you just feel something hitting you and you're like, because then you have to pull over, take the gloves off, fix your helmet. So that's the last thing, I will always, even before, like I put on the gloves and then I'll just double check. I'll just do the quick, like, okay, we're good.
We're starting to run out. Any other?
Cash. Take cash. Like I always bring a little bit of cash because you never know where you're going to stop. They might I've had it happen before where I didn't have cash on me and they're like, our card machine's down. And I'm like, but I'm out of gas.
Yeah.
Like I legitimately had to ask a favor of the guy. I was like, listen, I come here all the time. I will pay you back. Like, please, can you spot me like $3 just so I can get to the next station? And he was like, yeah, that's fine.
Well, another thing that I can think of is a back protector. My jackets, the back protectors don't come standard. And so I kind of swap them around to my different suits. And, I have been out and realized that I didn't put the back protector in. So, it's always important to check, especially if you're switching them around. Make sure that it's in the suit that you're wearing or in the jacket that you're wearing that day.
You guys were talking about gas and making sure that you're gassed up and knowing where you're going. And especially in remote places in the mountains, like the Dragon, that's so important because a lot of people will come up, especially during the off season, and they don't realize that the gas station is not open in the off season, or that it's only open between certain hours during the day. And so they'll come up and it'll be after hours and they don't have any gas and they're just stuck. And it's like 20 miles to the next gas station. And so it's like one of those times where you have to know where you're going, but also have in mind, okay, if you're going to a remote place, make sure you know where the gas stations are and how much mileage that you have for your amount of gas and what times those gas stations are open, because it's a horrible feeling for people who get stranded.
I was in California maybe 2 years ago and was riding around, and it was one of those things when the gas light hadn't come on and it's like 30 miles through and then we're on the other side of the forest essentially that we were going through. And I was like, oh, I can make it. The light will come on at some point. And like maybe 2 minutes later, the light comes on and we are already in, going through the pathway. Well, the wildfires had, ripped through that forest that we were going through. And so a lot of the roads were cut off and took us in different routes that we weren't expecting to go. And so thinking that I had 40 miles left, I got to that 0 and I had to ride on that for a good 10 to 20 miles. So it was unbelievable. I was coasting and neutral most of the times. It's not a great, experience to have, thinking that at any point in time that you could just run out of gas. And actually, we got to a place where a car had gone off the side and the road was closed. And so we had to pull over and someone had an RV. And so I actually got gas from the RV and put it in the motorcycle. And that's how I survived.
Nice.
If you think you're low on gas and you're near a gas station, get gas.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, with that, any final thoughts on your pre-ride checklist?
Check your head, check your bike. I mean,
Yeah.
Both are just as important.
I tend to do everything in a very specific order. And so ever since, I first started riding, I always would do things in the same order every time I go for a ride, because that way I know if I'm like forgetting something, it's pretty glaringly obvious. So, if you're a new rider, try to come up with your personal checklist. If you have to write it down and, look at it every time for the first 10 times or whatever, until it becomes nature to just go through that mentally. And, then like Sarah said, take a deep calming breath, make sure that you're mentally where you need to be, and then kickstands up and go.
All right, ladies, with that, until the next one.
Bye.
Bye.